Was the most you ever lost in a coin toss? It's my horrible Javier Bardem impression, and this review is No Country for Old Men. It's the Coen Brothers film. They won Best Directors for it, and won Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, Javier Bardem, who's brilliant in the movie. This is an absolutely incredible film. Truly, truly great. I love this movie. For one thing, it is adapted from Cormac McCarthy's brilliant novel. This is the movie tie-in version or whatever, but it's a great novel, and one of the more faithful adaptations that I've ever seen of a novel to film. Like, you could almost like go through this book as you're watching the movie, aside from maybe a few passages. It's pretty close. So you don't see that too often. Um, that could have been the script. The book could have been the script for the movie. But yeah, basically, this is a movie similar to Fargo, except this is like the desert, super dark, neo-western, terrifying version of Fargo. Basically, same kind of deal. Someone needs to get away with money. This time it's Josh Brolin playing Llewellyn, and he's just out hunting. He's a Vietnam vet. And he comes across a drug deal that very clearly went bad, and he finds the money, and basically he wants to get away with it. But as the tagline informs us, there are no clean getaways, which is absolutely true. When Anton Chigurh gets on his trail and leaves a path of destruction along the way. And kind of similar to Fargo, there is the sheriff character. This time it's Tommy Lee Jones, as a man who's sort of entering into his twilight days, close to retirement. He's seems like he's seen it all, but the world is constantly surprising to him, and how dark the world has turned, and how insane everything has become with drugs and just horrible killings and everything like that. It truly is, as the title kind of suggests, No Country for Old Men. And he kind of represents somewhat of a version of, hope and reason and understanding in this crazy world. Meanwhile, the Chigurh character, Javier Bardem, represents absolute destruction, and more accurately, like absolute fate, basically. It's all as simple as a coin toss, basically. And the way Tommy Lee Jones, he narrates the story, it is essentially his interpretation of the events. Like, I really only think that he just has opening and closing narration, and that's it. But the story mainly focuses on Josh Brolin's character Llewellyn as he's trying to get away. So it is very more straightforward thriller than Fargo is. It does have certain scenes that are kind of stand out a little bit as kind of oddball, and some very very minute comic relief. Like one scene I love is when in one scene Llewellyn goes to the supply store and buys his outfit. Then he comes back after being in the hospital and says, "Oh, you ever see anybody here who comes in just their socks?" And straight face, the clerk's like, "No, sir, it's unusual." I just think that's a really funny scene. But the movie is just so suspenseful. Like, honestly, I've seen this movie maybe 10 times. Every time, I'm just sucked in. Like, the Coens, they've really outdone themselves with the tension that they create in this movie, truly. Because there's something, like, if you watch a thriller or whatever, it doesn't have the same effect that it may have in repeat viewings, but this one, every single time, it's held up incredibly well, like incredibly. Especially like this movie, it still has the power. Every time I watch it, there's one scene that I'll always jump up at, and that's the scene where Llewellyn goes to the second hotel, and he sees the shadow underneath the crack of the door, and he's just kind of waiting, and of course, Anton Chigurh, he has the air shooter thing. I forget what it's called, like the cattle killer thing, and he shoots open the lock of the door, goes, and it just scares me so much. It really does, and that's a great shootout scene. And, it's just such a fantastic movie. I mean, it's hard to describe what's so good about it. I mean, it's definitely externally a thriller, but there are deeper levels of like fate and justice and things like that, which I'm just not eloquent enough to go into detail for, unfortunately. But I mean, as it is, it's just an incredible story. greatly acted. Tommy Lee Jones is brilliant in the movie. I think it's one of Tommy Lee Jones' best roles. Surprisingly, he wasn't nominated for an Oscar for this. That year, he was nominated for like a bunch of other awards. I think he was nominated for like the BAFTA, the SAG for supporting actor. But what he ended up being nominated for an Oscar for was actually In the Valley of Ella. So I guess they kind of had to choose one or the other. But Tommy Lee Jones is great as usual. Josh Brolin, he's fantastic in the movie. Really, this kind of was one of the movies that contributed to his sort of resurgence, his sort of comeback, basically. He's brilliant in the movies. The stubborn, in way over his head character, he does it brilliantly. Kelly Macdonald, who, I fell in love with through Trainspotting. She's such a fantastic, beautiful actress, and you could watch this movie and not think for a second that she's actually Scottish. She really nails the Southern accent seamlessly, I think. Though I'm not a Southerner, maybe, everybody will take issue with something, but I think she does a great accent. And of course, Javier Bardem, in his Oscar-winning role, he's the most terrifying villain that I've seen in quite some time. Like, last 20 years, he's one of the top 3 most terrifying villains. Like maybe him and like the Joker from The Dark Knight. Really, really something. The supporting cast, you got Woody Harrelson, who's great. I love Woody Harrelson. He's almost like the voice of the audience of the movie, sort of like. His character is also kind of like a bounty hunter type, and his notoriety is that he's one of the few men who saw Anton Chigurh and lived. And he goes to the office of kind of like the big boss in charge of the drug deals, played by Stephen Root, who's usually in a lot of Coen brother films, and it's great to see him in an absolutely straight performance. He's like, how dangerous is this Chigurh character? And Woody Harrelson's like, compared to what? The bubonic plague? And it's funny, and he's like, do you have any idea how crazy you sound? And I just love it. The movie is just a masterpiece, I think. And kind of, I know that there are criticisms of the ending, how it kind of stopped short, but I think it said all it needed to say with that final monologue with Tommy Lee Jones. And because it does stop so short, it kind of provokes you to kind of think about what you've just heard. I mean, a lot of times in a movie like this, we're expecting, some kind of grand final scene, or like some kind of final shot of like, zooming away from the house, showing the desert, fade out, anything like that. But the fact that this stops short, it kind of catches you off guard, and you're like, okay, it stopped at this point, so I need to think about the story that he just told, and what it means to this character and to the film in general, about kind of how the passing of generations, and what his dream meant to him. So that, I think, works, and it is again, it's faithful to the novel. That's exactly how the novel ends. It won 4 Academy Awards. I can't remember what the 4th. I think it was like a sound or something like that. But definitely well deserving of Best Picture, well deserving of the Best Directors for the Coens. Well deserving of Javier Bardem's Oscar. He's great. Just all around classic. Do I personally think it should have won? Maybe. There were a lot of good movies nominated that year. You had this. You had There Will Be Blood, which is a great movie. Juno, which I liked a lot. Michael Clayton, which is great. And something, Atonement. I didn't see that. Sorry. But yeah, I think this was definitely deserving of it. An absolute classic. One of the Coen brothers' bests. Especially if you want to see them kind of do something a little more straight-laced, a little more serious. They're very playful and funny directors who do play with convention, as they've done with Fargo, as they've done with The Big Lebowski, of course. You name it, they're oddball directors. But this one is a little more straight-laced, which shows that they can do it, basically. And they add their touches to it, and it absolutely works. And I think it's a fantastic film. One of the best films that come in the last 10, 15 years or so. Absolutely great film. Puts me on edge every single time, and kind of leaves me reflective on super deep stuff every single time. So I love it. I think it's a great film, and that's pretty much all I have to say. So thanks for watching.